Welcome everyone to another episode of Share Your Journey Live. And today we have with us Jessica Bittel. And I'm really honored to have her with me today. We've spoken a couple of times in the past, and I certainly don't want to take much time up from her. So I'm going to go ahead and suit this over so everybody can see you. There we go. We've got you live. And hold on. Oh, of course I forgot to do this. A whole lot of background noise there. But go ahead, Jessica. I am so sorry. Yeah, they all know how I am with my lives. I am truly, truly live. But, unrehearsed and raw. But tell everybody, for those of our members that don't know you, who you are and where you're from, and then we'll get into what you do.
Okay, so thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to be with everybody that's tuned in today. So my name's Jess, and as you can probably tell by the accent, I'm from the UK. But I'm currently living in a little rural town in the middle of the mountains in Bavaria. I am a coach. I'm a well-being and relationship coach. And essentially what I do is I help people get out of a rut. So whether you're in a relationship that isn't working for you, you're in a career that isn't making you feel happy, you may have been suffering loss, or it could be that you are at a stage in life where you feel that something is missing. And I think a lot of us can relate to that one. And I truly feel very, very passionate about the fact that I believe that well-being is intrinsically linked to relationships, whether that's a relationship with yourself or with other people. And if your relationship with yourself and or other people isn't right and doesn't feel authentic to you, then that has a knock-on effect on everything in your life. And I think it's so important. So I basically help people with that.
Okay.
So, and I'll just quickly, please excuse me because I have written down some notes because I know we've only got 30 minutes.
That's okay.
So
That's all right.
I just want to quickly run through. Oh, I can't hear you now, Stacey.
I turn myself off mute. Okay. Well, no, but I was saying that's fine. That's fine. So I always ask my guests, how's the weather there in the UK today? Just because.
Well, I'm actually back in Germany.
Oh,
right
are
now.
you? Okay.
I am, and it's. I'm looking at the mountains here. It's a bit grey, but it's quite warm, so it's quite pleasant at the moment.
Okay.
But here, because we're in the mountains, the weather can change very, very quickly at any time. So it can be warm 1 minute, and then half an hour later it's going to drop 10 degrees. So we'll see what happens later.
Yeah, we shall see. So I know you touched upon your coaching business, Jess. And what I like to do is just highlight everyone's journey in my travel group because, travel is not only about the destination, but the path we took to get there. So can you share with the other members, like the path that led you to your coaching business? Like, was there a particular moment or,
There was a combination of moments, I think, really, which this is why I've written it down because I've shared parts of my experiences with others when I felt it's been helpful, but never really written everything down together. So, basically, I grew up in quite a bohemian background. My father was a musician. We were all musicians. My dad was professional, so he'd go and he was a construction worker during the day, and at night he came home and then he went out to work again. He was singing and playing. So I had a great, exciting childhood, but my father was a soft person. My mother was quite strict, and that sometimes caused friction because I didn't feel a lot of the time that she was letting me express myself. She felt she was doing it the right way. That was her way of caring for me. But actually I felt kind of restricted. I grew up, I got married very young, had a baby, my beautiful son, and then consequently, because we were far too young when we got married, I went through divorce. And then unfortunately, I entered into a very controlling relationship, which I really never believed that would happen to me, but it did. And I stayed in that relationship far too long, and I eventually had a wake-up call and realised I've got to get myself out of this, which I eventually did. And then throughout that, my career was basically, I was support working with people with physical and learning disabilities, older people and other people with addiction and other various needs. So I was always involved in that kind of work. And if you've written down on paper what would have been my ideal job, I guess you would have said a counsellor at that point. But that wasn't a path I really wanted to take in that moment in time. I decided, after working for a charity organisation, that I wanted to train to become a social worker. And I'd never believed I was academic. I didn't do well at school at all. My mum, she used to use reverse psychology with me. So she would always say things like, which sounds terrible now saying it, but, oh, you're being really lazy, you know, you're not working hard enough, blah, blah, blah. And I think that was her way of trying to encourage me to work harder, but it had the complete opposite effect, and I just rebelled against that completely, which I'm sure a lot of people can actually relate to that one. So I thought, well, I need to do something, and I had all this experience, so I got myself into college. Then in England, you have to get yourself to a certain degree level to get into university. And I absolutely loved doing the course, and that involved counselling as well, and I really enjoyed that side of it. And then I was very happy in my personal life. I had my son with me, I was a single parent, and yes, it had been tough at times, but I got to a point where I felt more settled. And then some guy just walked into my life, and I was thinking, I don't want to be in a relationship, I'm done with relationships. But he was very, very different, and it took a long time of getting to know him and trusting him, and then eventually introducing him to my son. And then, to cut a long story short, we decided to be together, and we were going to get married, and everything was going to be great. And I suddenly had an epiphany moment. I don't want to do social work. I don't know what I want, but I definitely don't want to do social work. So I gave that up and got myself a job as a property manager. So that went on. And then we were planning our wedding, and then my whole world imploded. Because I was there, it was coming up soon to my wedding day. My dad hadn't been very well. He'd had some physical problems, but it was nothing serious. But he'd started to get very depressed, never had any mental health issues before. And then he had a breakdown, quite a big breakdown, and he was diagnosed with clinical depression. And it got to a point where he had to be hospitalised because my mum couldn't cope with it anymore. It was too much of a responsibility. He was saying very worrying things about his safety, which I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to trigger anyone, but it was a very difficult time. And we were planning our wedding. We weren't sure whether we should go ahead, but my mum was saying, no, we need to do this. It's one thing to look forward to. We can't decide whether your dad's going to get better or not, so let's just go ahead and do it. So off I go, and I go to have my hair appointment for my practice run for the wedding hair. And then I'm in the hairdresser's having my hair done, and there's a call from my husband, and he said, you need to come now. And it was like, okay, well, and he said, your dad's in hospital. I'm not going to tell you anymore, but you just need to come now. He's okay, but you need to leave. We're going to come and pick you up and take you to the hospital. And at that time, it was like obviously shock. And I said, you need to tell me what's happened. And eventually he said, your father's tried to take his life. And I'm not going to say anything else to you now. He's there, he's okay, but you need to come. So we go to the hospital, we get there, and you can imagine how awful it was. He was unconscious, he had tubes coming out of him everywhere, and we were basically told, he did a very good job. He is still here, but we don't know whether he's going to pull through, so you need to prepare yourself for that. They put him in an induced coma, and we didn't know whether he was going to come out of it, and even if he did, whether he was going to be permanently damaged with his brain, because they had to rest his brain. Thank goodness, after a week of that, me and my brother, we shared being in ICU with him because my mum completely fell apart, and he did come out of it, thank goodness, and he was okay. It took 2 years for him to get better. And it was like, do we get married? And eventually we decided, okay, we'll get married. And thank goodness he did manage to come to the wedding. He wasn't well, but he was better than he was. It took him 2 years to get better. And then as soon as he got better, bang, my mum was diagnosed with cancer. You really couldn't write it. So it was like, okay, she was okay for a while. And then again, bang, my father had another breakdown. And also my brother had started to get sick, which culminated in a neurological issue, which was also inbuilt with mental health issues as well. So I had my brother that was mentally unwell, and he was struggling with his physical symptoms. My father was very mentally unwell, and my mum was at home because she chose to be at home, and she was going to pass away. So I had 3 of them together, plus at that point I had my dream job. I got a job as a manager of an assisted living complex for people with varying needs, addiction again, and mental health issues, physical disability, and I loved that job. And I got into that job, I turned it around. The morale there within the employees was bad, and we just made it into a really positive experience for everybody. And I eventually had to give that job up because I had to take care of my mum because she was so sick, my dad couldn't do it. And then I started to get symptoms. I thought, there's something wrong with me, I'm not sure what it is. And then I was going up and down to the hospital because mum got hospitalised. And then I realised that there's definitely something wrong with my leg. I'm having real problems with it. I just didn't have time to get it looked at. So eventually I did go to the emergency room because I thought, this is silly. You know, I'm in hospital every day and I'm not even getting this checked. And again, to cut a long story short, they then diagnosed me with an autoimmune disease. And I also had an accident. I got my foot caught in the car door because I was rushing around so much. And this is then what culminated in me then changing my whole life, because I wasn't looking after myself. I clearly was burnt out. I was running around like a mad person. I was trying to take care of 3 people plus my son and be there for my husband, and bless his heart, he was just amazing during this time. And I'd go and I'd deal with my dad and my mum, and outwardly everything would seem like everything was fine, and I would come home and I would just fall apart, absolutely fall apart. And I so wish now, and I can't state this enough, I wish I'd known about coaching, because if I'd known about coaching then, I truly believe I wouldn't have got so sick. Because eventually my mum passed away, and she passed away at home, and it was not a good death. I mean, no death is good, obviously, but it wasn't a good death. My dad was in a terrible state, my brother was. And luckily my dad got better. My husband was then told he needed to go to Germany to work when all this was going on. And then it was like, well, okay, so my son had left home at that point, he'd gone travelling. We thought, well, we can do that. But what about my dad and everything? And also my health. So eventually Dad got better. And then I started to think, I was told, basically, you're not going to get better. So you can either have this, it's a similar drug to chemo, I think. You can have this drug. It's not going to cure you, but it will keep the pain threshold down a bit. And there was nothing else they could offer me. And I thought, chemo for some people, obviously, my mum had it. I mean, for some people, it's the right path. For me, it wasn't the right path. And I thought, there isn't anyone out there at the moment that can help me. So I started to do my own research. And I started to change my diet. I learned how to meditate, because I'd never done anything like that before. I started to learn very gentle yoga. I looked into various supplements and various bits and pieces like that. And I basically turned my whole life upside down because I knew something had to really change. But I think, again, I didn't know about coaching. I thought about counselling, and I thought at that moment in time, because of the experience I'd had, I know I'd been through obviously some trauma, but I felt at that point counselling wasn't the right path, and I didn't know about coaching then. But I started looking at self-development. So I took a self-development course, which also incorporated some coaching, and it was completely life-changing for me because it was all about flipping perspectives. You know, it's very easy for people to say to you, oh, you know, you've got to look at the positive in life, because it's not as simplistic as that, you know. But if you start to look at things differently, and I'm sure you yourself, Stacey, have found that through the experiences you've been through in your life, that even though something isn't particularly positive, you can always get something positive out of it, I believe. And I also believe that we all have choices in life. Now, for some people that have been through extreme trauma, obviously coaching would not be the right path. You would need some form of therapy. Coaching is very different to therapy. The reason why I love coaching so much is because you're focusing on the here and now. You may well go back and look at the past, and I do this with a lot of my clients, but I will never take them anywhere they don't want to go. But if you touch on the past, because you need to understand where something has come from so it makes sense to you, and then you can then take action. So it's about focusing on where you are now and where you want to be and how to get there. You may not know where you want to be, but coaching will help you find out firstly what it is that you want to do and how you want to address that, and maybe what's not working for you well in life, like what's not serving you. Maybe the relationships, like I said before, intrinsically your relationship with yourself. My relationship with myself was not good at that point in time before I'd started this self-development, because I wasn't thinking of myself at all. You know, my husband, who's a dream, you know, he'd be saying to me, come on, Jess, you know, you've got to stop thinking about yourself. And it's like, yeah, I know, but I've got this to do, and I've got that to do, and I've got to sort this out for Josh, and I've got to go and do this for my dad, and what about my brother, and what about my... all these things. And it was like what I call in coaching, which is my own analogy, all this spaghetti in my head, and I could not just straighten it out. It was just this clump of stuff in my head. So doing this self-development course really made me focus on, okay, so what's going on in life right now? I've got this, and this. What's working for me? What isn't working for me? And ultimately, am I happy with what's working for me? And do I want to improve things? And also, who am I? Who am I really? Because when from the moment we're born, I believe our personalities are formed by outside influences in general. So from your parents, from your childhood friends, from your teachers, then when you're growing up, from your work colleagues, your bosses, your partnerships, your adult friendships, the media. I mean, I could go on and on. We take in all this stuff, and then we become this being who we believe to be who we intrinsically are. And of course, the essence of that is true, that is who we are. But we have all these beliefs about ourselves, and you know, I use that buzz phrase, limiting beliefs, but it's so true. We have all these limiting beliefs about ourselves because people, without realizing, they have certain expectations of how they need or want us to be. And we can quite often either, it's something that Mel Robbins, I don't know if you know Mel Robbins, but she often talks about this, that we either become chameleons or people pleasers in certain situations. You know, we all do. We all have different personalities, don't we, in different situations, whether it's with our family, I know I definitely do, but with your family, with your friends, with your partner, with your work friends, and different groups of people. but that sometimes becomes so jumbled up because you're just so busy with life. And you know, we talk about burnout all the time, don't we? But it's so important that we actually take care of ourselves, because I know we say it all the time, but it's so true. If we don't take care of ourselves, how on earth can we be there for anybody else?
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me, definitely.
I, I tell you, Jess, that is such, you had so much in there, in that journey. And from, you know, your son, to the marriage, to your father, to your mother, to your brother, and then you. I mean, I am in awe, and the
Oh, bless.
positivity that you radiate when I know we have conversation is absolutely inspiring. So thank you
Oh,
for your
thank you.
strength, and thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that with all of us today. And as you were speaking, I mean, you touched pretty much on all my questions, which is good. So I didn't have to talk that much, which is good. But I wanted to wrap up because we're getting close to about 11:30. I wanted you to touch on maybe perhaps one piece of advice that you might have. I know because you do work with clients that are stuck. And in your coaching business, because this is all about obviously sharing our journey so that we might be a path or a guide for someone else. And you talked a lot about your personal struggles. Is there one thing you could share with our members that kind of help you get out of your rut? And I know you said it was the coaching. Was it that? Finding that thing that resonated with you?
Yes, I believe it was. And I think, well, there are two things actually. The first thing I would say, this isn't about making massive changes to start with, because if you think of it in terms of that, you won't get anywhere because it's far too overwhelming. It's just as I did, it's just taking very small steps. Like, for instance, with if I use this as an example, if you're struggling with your health for whatever reason, I mean, I'm not a doctor and I would never give health advice. That's not what I'm here for. But I would say that if you feel like maybe you put on weight and you're not feeling too great, then find one small thing that you can do, but actually pinpoint that with something that you do as a routine every day. Say, for instance, you get up at, say, I just use an example, you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and then you go and make yourself coffee. It takes you 5 minutes to brew your coffee. So whilst you're brewing your coffee and you're stood there, you could actually be making one small change. Like, you could be doing a small 5-minute routine of exercises, and you pinpoint that. So you actually clip that onto your routine of making your coffee every morning. So it doesn't feel like, oh, I've got to get up now and do my exercises. It's right, I'm going to put my coffee on and now I'm going to do, I don't know, 10 repetitions of lunges or whatever it is you choose to do, anything. But just click that onto that little routine that you have every day. And the other thing I would say is that what holds everybody back is fear. And we all have fears. We all have them. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of judgment, wanting to be liked, fear of risk-taking. I mean, I could just go on and on. Fear of not being loved, fear of feeling inadequate. And we all have those fears. But with coaching will actually help you take real positive action towards breaking down those fears, understanding those fears, and then actually building a roadmap towards freedom without having those anymore, so you can actually achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. And also, one other thing I'd like to say, just if I can quickly say it, is that I think one of the mistakes that are made in life is that, I don't know what happens in the US, but definitely in the UK. At school, we used to see a careers officer who used to say to us, okay, so what do you want to do? What job do you want when you leave school? And it's like, I don't know, I'm 15, I've got no idea what I want to do when I leave school. And it's like, rather than thinking in terms of what career are you going to have, it's like, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to climb up Mount Everest? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to paint beautiful paintings? Do you want to play a musical instrument? Do you want to sing? Things that we need to have joy. If we have joy in our life, our jobs are secondary. We all need to pay the bills. We don't have to have some amazing aspiration of a massive career. You know, coaching for me intrinsically is all about being there for your client, being their cheerleader in essence, someone listening in, someone that's there for you and always has your back. And you don't have to have some big plan. You may not even know what it is you want. You just know that you want more of something, whether that be your relationship, your career, anything in your life. And it's for everybody. It's not for high achievers. It doesn't have to be a high ticket thing. And I say that, you know, if someone wants coaching, then we'll find a way. That's not a problem.
I like that. You'll find a way. There's not a problem with that. Well, Jess, thank you so much for taking time out this morning to speak with all of us. If something that Jessica said that resonated with you today, feel free to click on her name. I know I've hyper-bulleted, or however you do it in blue, in the group a lot. Her coaching, getting unstuck. You know, I like what you said about the small steps, because over time, obviously, you look back and you've made strides. So sometimes it's not huge leaps, it's just one small thing. So I know that resonated with me myself. But she said something that resonated with you all today. Feel free to reach out to her directly. And she'll drop in all the comments and blurbs and whatnot. And I appreciate you giving so much of yourself and serving others and making sure that no one is left behind. That truly is powerful.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
It's been lovely to speak
You're
to you.
welcome. Will you hang out for a moment? For just 1 moment after?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. You all have a great day. I'm not sure who is up next on Friday. I'm not even sure I have somebody Friday. But you all will see it in the comments. I will talk to you all soon. Be blessed and take care. Bye-bye.